There are moments in life that shatter your world, moments so profound they cleave your existence into a stark before and after. Sometimes these are grand, seismic events. Other times they are quieter, insidious betrayals that build slowly, layer by painful layer, until one final public act of cruelty pushes you over the precipice. This is a story about such a moment when dignity was stripped bare, when a public humiliation became the unexpected catalyst for a woman to reclaim not just her life, but her very soul. Imagine this. You're at a party, a housewarming celebration you meticulously planned, a testament to the life you've built, brick by agonizing brick, with the man you love. The air buzzes with laughter, the clinking of glasses, the hum of success. You're moving through the crowd, a tray of drinks in hand, a polite smile plastered on your face, trying to ignore the gnawing tightness in your chest, that familiar knot of anxiety that has become an unwelcome resident in your spirit. 1 minute you are merely existing, navigating the delicate dance of appearances. The next, the world tilts. Your heel catches, a minor stumble, an accidental misstep. But instead of a steadying hand, you feel a brutal shove, a deliberate force that sends you sprawling to the floor. The clinking stops. The laughter dies. Guests freeze, suspended in a tableau of shock and disbelief. And then, he stands over you, the man you married, the man who promised to protect you. He holds a champagne flute, not in a gesture of toast, but in a victory pose, a cruel, triumphant grin plastered across his face. "She talks too much," he mutters, loud enough for the entire room to hear. "Now you all see what I deal with every day." And then, the ultimate betrayal, some of them laughed. Not everyone, perhaps, but enough. Enough to make the silence deafening, enough to make the humiliation absolute. This isn't just a story about a kick. This is a story about the devastating impact of public humiliation, about the slow burn of emotional abuse, and about the quiet, calculated strength it takes to rise from the ashes of betrayal. It's a journey from victimhood to unparalleled empowerment, a roadmap for anyone who has ever been underestimated, unheard, or outright erased by someone they once loved. If you have ever felt that sting of being invisible, that ache of being disregarded, or the crushing weight of having your dignity trampled, then this story, this journey, is for you. Stay with us, because what unfolds isn't just revenge. It's a meticulously orchestrated reclaiming of self that will leave you both breathless and inspired. This is Ada's story, but in many ways, it's a reflection of the silent battles fought by countless others, a testament to the fact that power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it signs paperwork. The physical pain of the fall was almost negligible compared to the searing humiliation that coursed through Ada's veins. Lying there, twisted and bruised, she felt more than just the floor beneath her. She felt the weight of 4 years of marriage, 4 years of slow, deliberate erosion of her self-worth, culminating in this brutal public spectacle. The physical bruising would fade, but the invisible scars, etched deep into her psyche, felt permanent. She felt stripped, naked of every ounce of dignity she had desperately clung to, like a tattered flag fluttering defiantly in a storm. And Victor, the man she married, the architect of an empire they built together, didn't even flinch. His eyes held no remorse, no recognition of the pain he inflicted. He saw only a nuisance, a prop in his grandiose narrative, now conveniently exposed as problematic for his audience. That was the moment, that precise, agonizing instant on the cold floor of her own home, surrounded by silent witnesses and mocking laughter, when Ada knew. The man she loved, the charming, ambitious dreamer she had met years ago, was long gone. He was an illusion, a carefully constructed facade, and the monster who had replaced him Ada knew with chilling clarity that she was going to destroy him, not with screams or tears, not with the dramatic flair he seemed to crave. No, her revenge would be silent, it would be legal, and it would be utterly, irrevocably complete. This wasn't about an emotional outburst, it was about a strategic, surgical strike. Ada's journey with Victor began in the most unassuming of places, the narrow, dusty aisles of a secondhand bookstore in Ikoi, Lagos. He was a vision of charm and eloquence, a man who spoke with an intensity that promised a bright future, even though his present was utterly broke. Ada, on the other hand, was already on a trajectory of quiet ambition, managing her aunt's burgeoning food delivery startup. Victor was trying to launch a small tech blog, his aspirations constrained by a busted laptop and an empty wallet. Looking back, Ada would realize a crucial, painful truth. She wasn't a partner to him, not a lover in the true sense of the word. She was a ladder, a means to an end. Their courtship was fast, a whirlwind of intensity that Ada, in her youthful optimism, mistook for passionate romance. 6 months later, he proposed, and she accepted, convinced by his persuasive words and her own longing for a shared future. Her friends, with the benefit of an outsider's perspective, called him ambitious. Ada, deeply invested and perhaps a little blinded, saw focus. It was a classic red flag, often missed in the flush of new love. The imbalance of power, the subtle hints of transactional intent veiled as affection. This dynamic, where one partner is the sole enabler of the other's dreams, often leads to resentment and eventual abuse, as the enabler's worth becomes tied to their utility, not their intrinsic value. The foundation of Victor's ascent, and ironically, Ada's undoing, was a significant inheritance from her late mother, N5 million. Without hesitation, she poured every naira of it into his digital dream, co-funding his tech startup. She believed in him, in their shared vision. Within 2 years, the investment began to pay off. Victor's blog transformed into a legitimate business, generating enough income for better clothes, a respectable apartment, and a car. He started hiring staff, gaining recognition within the burgeoning tech scene. Ada, meanwhile, remained the steadfast manager of their finances, the silent architect behind the scenes, ensuring every penny was accounted for, every invoice paid, every investment strategically placed. She was the anchor, the administrator, the bedrock. Then came the insidious shift. Victor, now basking in the glow of his newfound success, declared that they needed to divide roles. He would handle the business accounts, he decreed, while Ada was to just focus on being my queen. My queen. The words, initially sweet, quickly curdled into a bitter irony. In reality, Ada wasn't becoming a queen. She was becoming invisible. Her strategic mind, her financial acumen, her tireless work, all relegated to the background while Victor stepped into the spotlight she had helped build. The home that was once a shared space began to transform into Victor's personal kingdom. His meetings bled into lavish parties. His co-workers evolved into a revolving door of flirty women who appeared at odd hours. The telltale signs of infidelity started to surface. Unfamiliar strands of hair on their pillows, scents of foreign perfumes lingering in the air, crimson lipstick stains on his shirts that were undeniably not hers. Each time Ada dared to voice her suspicions, Victor expertly deployed the weapon of gaslighting, a sinister form of psychological manipulation designed to make her question her own sanity. "Are you accusing me? You're paranoid. You don't trust me because you're insecure." These phrases, delivered with feigned indignation, slowly chipped away at Ada's confidence, forcing her to retreat, to shrink, so that his inflated ego could continue to shine. This is a common tactic in abusive relationships, where the victim is made to feel responsible for the abuser's actions, leading to self-doubt and further isolation. Ada, in her desperate attempt to preserve the peace and the illusion of their love, complied, shrinking into the background, becoming a ghost in her own home until that fateful night. The night of the party was meant to be a celebration of Victor's latest triumph, a partnership deal with a Nigerian tech giant. It was a testament to his ambition, or rather, their ambition. But for Ada, it was another stark reminder of her diminished role. She was informed of the party a mere 48 hours beforehand, given a guest list exceeding 60 people, most of whom were strangers to her. Yet she stayed quiet, stifling the familiar surge of resentment. She ordered the food, cleaned the house, meticulously arranged the hall, and donned her best gown, playing the perfect hostess, the dutiful queen. As she moved through the vibrant, chaotic scene, a tray of drinks balanced precariously in her hands, she overheard Victor laughing boisterously with his friends. One of them, a sharp-jawed man in a crisp linen suit, made a dismissive remark about Ada being too traditional. Victor's response, a casual shrug, sent a shard of ice through Ada's heart. "She's from a different world," he said, his voice laced with patronizing amusement. "But she's learning her place." That one sentence. Those few carelessly uttered words shattered the last fragile bit of peace Ada had clung to. It was more than an insult. It was a public declaration of her subjugation, a final, definitive statement of his contempt. In that moment, something inside her snapped. She turned to walk away, a desperate attempt to escape the suffocating weight of his words. But fate, or perhaps the universe, had other plans. The heel of her shoe caught on a rug, sending her stumbling. And then, instead of a helping hand, she felt a powerful push. Victor, reaching out not to steady her, but to propel her forward to ensure her fall. She hit the floor, her body jarring, her spirit crumbling. He laughed. The party incredibly went on. The music resumed its pulsating rhythm. But something fundamental, something core within Ada, irrevocably died in that instant. The immediate aftermath was a blur of raw, visceral pain. Ada stumbled upstairs, her body a canvas of physical bruises, her soul a landscape of emotional lacerations. She locked the bathroom door, retreating into the cold sanctuary of tiled walls, and cried. Not soft, gentle tears, but deep, gut-wrenching sobs that seemed to purge years of suppressed pain and humiliation. That night, sleep was an impossible luxury, food an unthinkable indulgence, but amidst the agony, a flicker ignited, a spark of cold, hard resolve. She didn't just cry, she did something. With trembling hands, Ada opened her old files, business licenses, bank statements, the deed of property, even his power of attorney. These weren't just dusty papers, they were the forgotten keys to her liberation. And as she meticulously reviewed each document, a quiet realization bloomed, a tiny, almost imperceptible smile touching her lips, despite the lingering ache in her heart. The house they lived in, the grand structure that hosted Victor's triumphant parties, was still registered in her name. His thriving business, co-signed under the startup she had registered years ago, funded by her inheritance. His luxurious car, a symbol of his success, financed through her late mother's trust account. Every single pillar of his carefully constructed empire was, in fact, built on her foundation, financed by her capital, and legally intertwined with her identity. He was walking around with borrowed power, an illusion of self-made success. And Ada, the woman he had just kicked and publicly humiliated, was about to pull the plug. This wasn't just a discovery, it was a revelation, a silent declaration that the game was about to change. She wasn't just the wife, she was the owner, the true architect. The next morning, the air in their home was thick with unspoken tension, yet Ada felt a strange, unsettling calm. Victor, true to form, offered no apology. Instead, he tossed his keys onto the table with an entitled clatter and demanded to know why she had embarrassed him in front of his friends. His words, dripping with self-pity and blame, were the final straw. That's when Ada smiled, a genuine, albeit small smile that held a chilling promise. "I embarrassed you," she echoed softly, her voice steady. "Victor, you haven't seen anything yet." He chuckled, a dismissive, arrogant sound, convinced she was bluffing, that she was merely an emotional woman lashing out. "You can't do anything, you're just the wife." But Ada, standing tall, met his gaze with a newfound steel in her eyes. "No," she corrected him, "I'm the owner." His smug expression faltered, freezing for a moment before he quickly recovered, dismissing her with a wave of his hand and walking out, oblivious to the seismic shift that had just occurred. The moment Victor walked out the door, the silent war began. Ada didn't hesitate. Her first call was to the bank, a concise instruction to freeze their joint accounts and to revoke Victor's signatory rights on the business account. The wheels of her meticulously planned retaliation were set in motion, gathering an unstoppable momentum. By noon, the first tangible consequence hit. Victor's card declined at a gas station, a small inconvenience that would quickly escalate. By 2 p.m., the electricity company sent a notice for unpaid bills that Victor, in his newfound queen role, was supposed to settle from the business account. His empire, built on Ada's resources and her silent labor, was beginning to crumble. By 5 p.m., his phone calls began, a desperate barrage of 17 missed calls, followed by increasingly agitated voice notes. Ada listened to them all, a faint, grim smile playing on her lips. "This is madness, Ada. You're ruining me. You're being emotional. Just open the gate and let's talk. You think freezing my accounts and changing locks makes you powerful? I made you." That last voice note especially resonated with a bitter irony. He made her? The man who had nothing but dreams, who arrived in her life with a busted laptop and an empty wallet. No, Ada thought with a quiet laugh. She was the soil, the sun, and the seed. He had merely stood in her shade, harvesting the fruits of her labor and her love. Instead of answering his frantic calls, Ada made another, this time to a locksmith. By nightfall, the locks on their sprawling house were changed, the house security code reset, the gate remotes reprogrammed. Victor, oblivious in his self-imposed delusion of grandeur, had no clue. He returned home at 11:42 p.m., tipsy, annoyed, and banging on the gate like a madman. "Open up, dummy! I live here!" But Ada merely stood by the curtain, lights off, watching him through the upstairs window, a silent ghost in her own story. A quiet, powerful smile touched her lips. In the dark, something felt new. Something felt undeniably powerful. That night, she didn't just lock the door, she locked the chapter. And the war had only just begun. This pivotal moment, the changing of the locks, wasn't merely a symbolic act. It was a concrete declaration of boundaries and ownership. It represented the moment Ada stopped reacting to Victor's abuse and started proactively reclaiming her space and her life. It's a testament to the fact that sometimes the most profound acts of defiance are executed in silence, meticulously, away from the public eye. For anyone who has felt their personal space invaded or their autonomy undermined, this act resonates deeply. It's about drawing a line in the sand, a firm "no more" that speaks volumes without uttering a single word. This initial move, seemingly small, was a strategic masterpiece, forcing Victor to confront the reality of his situation, alone and exposed. The night Victor slept in his car, Ada watched him through the upstairs window, an unblinking, unfeeling sentinel. There was no flinching, no tears, no flicker of pity, only a steely resolve, arms folded as his headlights died and his rage slowly morphed into bewildered confusion. For almost an hour, he paced, banged on the gate, shouted into the intercom, hurling curses at her as if she were his mortal enemy. But Ada knew the truth. His real enemy was his own unchecked arrogance, his inflated ego, and his profound underestimation of her strength. At 3 a.m., she finally went to bed, not out of exhaustion, but because she knew the game had truly begun, and she held every single card. By sunrise, Victor was gone. Ada assumed he'd driven off to his friend Leo's place, the same one who had laughed when she fell, the same one who had once advised Victor. If she starts acting stubborn, there are younger girls who'd love to be with a man like you. Good, Ada thought. Let him go be their problem now. This wasn't about vindictiveness. It was about liberation, about shedding the weight of someone else's dysfunction. That morning, Ada dressed sharply, not for him, not for show, but for herself. She chose the pristine white power suit she had worn 5 years ago, the day she first registered her company, the day she stepped out of her aunt's shadow and into her own story. It was a uniform of defiance, a quiet symbol of her renewed purpose, her destination, the bank. "Good morning, Ma," the manager greeted her, his eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and respect. "We received your instructions to freeze both business and personal joint accounts." "Yes," Ada replied, her voice calm and steady, "and I need full withdrawal access moved to me effective today." The manager hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. This was a significant request, one that required substantiation. Ada, prepared, handed him a meticulously organized stack of documents: her mother's trust authorization, the incorporation certificate of the business, the will, the original business startup contract. Each paper was a silent witness, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that she wasn't just the co-founder. She was the one who had funded everything. And that included the account Victor had been squandering on lavish hotel rooms and decadent club nights. The manager reviewed the documents for a tense 10 minutes, his expression shifting from doubt to professional acceptance. Then he delivered the verdict. "It's done. You are now the sole signatory." Ada nodded, a flicker of satisfaction, but no triumphant smile, no overt joy. This wasn't revenge, not in the petty sense. This was restoration. It was the painstaking process of reclaiming what was rightfully hers, piece by painstaking piece. The implications of this move are profound. It highlights the critical importance of financial literacy and legal documentation, especially within intimate relationships where power dynamics can become skewed. Many individuals, particularly women, often delegate financial control to their partners, trusting them implicitly, only to find themselves vulnerable and disempowered if the relationship sours. Ada's foresight in retaining these documents, or perhaps her innate sense of prudence, proved to be her ultimate shield. It wasn't about distrust at the outset, but about having the verifiable truth to present when the truth was twisted and denied. Her actions here serve as a powerful lesson for anyone in a partnership. Understand your financial landscape, keep your own records, and never cede full control, even when love is abundant. Because when love is replaced by betrayal, those documents become your most potent weapon for justice. That afternoon, Ada drove to the main business office in Lekki, Phase 1. The atmosphere was a low hum of whispers and uneasy glances. Victor hadn't shown up. No one had seen him since the weekend party. Some staff whispered, their words hushed, bordering on gossip. One employee, a young woman named Kemi, approached Ada quietly, her eyes filled with concern. "Madam, are you okay? We heard he hit you." Ada looked at her for a moment, a pause filled with the weight of unspoken truths and shared understanding. Then she spoke, her voice clear and steady. "He kicked me in front of all of you. And now," she continued, her gaze unwavering, "I'm kicking him out. Silently." Kemi nodded, a shared sense of solidarity passing between them. "We stand with you, Ma." This wasn't just Kemi's sentiment. It was the unspoken support of others who had witnessed Victor's escalating arrogance and Ada's quiet suffering. By 3 p.m., Ada had issued new, decisive instructions. All company decisions were now to go through her. All access cards tied to Victor's name were immediately revoked. She appointed her cousin, Tara, a bright and capable individual, as the interim operations manager, ensuring continuity and loyalty within the restructured management. Later that evening, a company-wide email landed in everyone's inboxes, a terse professional missive that sealed Victor's fate. Following internal restructuring, Mr. Victor Adme is suspended pending investigation into financial mismanagement. The corporate language veiled a personal triumph, a strategic move executed with precision and undeniable authority. The fallout was immediate and predictable. Victor's phone calls, now an even more desperate torrent, rang on Ada's device. 17 times she let it ring, letting each unanswered call amplify his growing panic. Then came the voice notes, a symphony of rage, disbelief, and blatant victimhood. "This is madness, Ada. You're ruining me. You're being emotional. Just open the gate and let's talk. You think freezing my accounts and changing locks makes you powerful? I made you." Or was her... The last message, laced with his signature arrogance, only served to solidify Ada's resolve. He made her? The man who arrived with nothing but dreams, a busted laptop, and an empty bank account? No. Ada knew the truth. She was the fertile soil, the life-giving sun, the potent seed. He had merely stood in her shade, basking in the light she provided, growing fat on her resources. But the day wasn't over. At 6 p.m., Victor returned. This time, he wasn't alone. He was accompanied by 2 police officers, a desperate and misguided attempt to leverage the authorities against Ada. He marched up to their house, demanding entry, claiming Ada had unlawfully locked him out and seized his property. From the upstairs balcony, Ada watched them knock, her gaze calm, her posture regal. "Madam, please come out. This man says he's the legal owner of this house." Ada descended slowly, a stack of meticulously organized papers in hand. Her demeanor was unshakable, her voice polite but firm. "Officers, do you have a warrant?" she asked. "No," one replied, clearly caught off guard by her composure. "But this man—" "This house," Ada interrupted, her voice gaining strength, "is in my name. I have the certificate of occupancy. I have the deed. I built this with my inheritance." She handed them copies of the documents, undeniable proof of her ownership. "And this man," she continued, rolling up her sleeve to reveal the still vivid bruises on her arm, "has no tenancy agreement, no ownership, and as you can see, he assaulted me 2 nights ago." The officers' eyes shifted, their initial inclination to side with the seemingly distraught man giving way to a new understanding. One officer turned to Victor, his tone now laced with a hint of accusation. "Oga, na true?" Victor stammered, his facade crumbling under the weight of Ada's unassailable evidence. The officer sighed, a sound of weary resignation. "Oga, if madam get paper, you no get case. This one a domestic matter. Go court if you no agree." They left, their departure a quiet affirmation of Ada's victory. Victor stared at Ada, his face a mask of disbelief, as if he was seeing her for the very first time. "I made one mistake," he spat, his voice filled with a venomous mix of rage and dawning realization. "No," Ada replied softly, closing the gate, sealing him out of her life once more. "You made 1,000, and I remembered every single one. This wasn't just a battle won. It was a psychological turning point, a definitive statement that her memory, her resilience, and her meticulous record-keeping were far more potent than his bluster and deceit. It's a powerful lesson in the importance of holding on to your truth, even when an abuser tries to gaslight you into forgetting it. The power shift was palpable. Ada's meticulous documentation wasn't just a safeguard, it was a blueprint for her escape and her future. This entire sequence underscores the crucial advice often given to victims of domestic abuse. Document everything. Every text, every email, every financial transaction, every verbal threat, every physical injury. These aren't just personal records. They are the evidence that can turn the tide in legal proceedings, transforming a he said, she said into an undeniable truth. Ada's calm, almost serene handling of the police, backed by irrefutable proof, demonstrates that confidence in your truth, when supported by facts, is an incredibly potent force. Her experience provides a vivid example of how proactive legal and financial planning, even in the midst of a seemingly loving partnership, can become an invaluable asset in reclaiming autonomy and safety. That night, Ada received a call from Tara, her newly appointed interim operations manager. "Auntie," Tara whispered, her voice laced with urgency, "you need to see this." She sent a screenshot. Victor, in a desperate attempt to salvage his crumbling reputation, had created a burner Facebook account. He was posting pictures of Ada, accompanying them with venomous captions. "This woman used juju to take over my company. She's a fraud. She's lying to everyone. She's unstable. If anything happens to me, blame her." He was unraveling publicly, spectacularly. Good, Ada thought, a cold satisfaction settling in her stomach. Let him scream in the dark because I had light and receipts. But Ada, in her measured calm, underestimated one crucial thing: the lengths a wounded man, stripped of his power and his delusions, would go when he realized you no longer feared him. The next day, Victor proved this point dramatically. He showed up at Ada's office, not at the gate where he could be easily intercepted, but inside the building. He had somehow convinced one of the junior staff, perhaps through manipulation or old allegiances, to grant him access. He stormed into Ada's office, a wild dog cornered, sweating, disheveled, his eyes bloodshot with rage. "You think you've won?" he bellowed, his voice echoing through the quiet workspace. Ada didn't flinch. She rose slowly, her posture radiating an unflappable authority. "Tara," she called, her voice calm but firm. Before Victor could lunge, 2 security guards, recently hired and thoroughly vetted, swiftly intervened, dragging him out. Ada followed behind, her heels sharp against the marble, her head held high, projecting an image of unyielding control. "Victor Ayami," she declared in front of all her stunned staff, her voice ringing with finality, "you are now trespassing. If you return here again, I will file a restraining order." He shouted something vulgar as they forced him out, but Ada didn't react. She merely looked at her staff, her gaze apologetic. "I apologize," she said calmly. "This won't happen again." And she meant it. That very evening, she made another call, this time to the real authorities, to finally file that restraining order. But she didn't stop there. She called a lawyer. "Is there a way," she asked, her voice betraying a hint of raw determination, "to remove his name permanently from our business? I want him erased, legally, entirely." The lawyer, sensing the depth of her resolve, paused for a moment. Then, the words that made Ada's lips twitch with a grim satisfaction. "Yes, and we can start immediately." This escalation from freezing accounts to publicly confronting Victor in her workplace marks a significant shift in Ada's strategy. It's no longer just about personal restitution. It's about safeguarding her professional life and setting a precedent. The decision to involve law enforcement and legal counsel for a restraining order and permanent business separation highlights the importance of transitioning from individual acts of defiance to formal legal protection. Abusers often escalate when they lose control, and Ada's response demonstrates foresight and strategic thinking in protecting herself and her assets. The lawyer's affirmation, "Yes, and we can start immediately," provides a powerful moment of validation and hope, signaling that the legal system, when properly navigated, can indeed be a formidable ally in the fight for justice and peace. It underscores the critical lesson. When facing an unhinged abuser, emotional resilience must be paired with concrete legal action. The very next morning, a new chapter began, albeit with a familiar face. Sheila, Ada's neighbor, knocked on her door, her brow raised. her expression a clear signal that she had already absorbed the latest neighborhood gossip. "I heard you were crying outside last night," Sheila began gently. Then, her voice softening, she added, "That man, he kicked you in front of everyone?" She handed Ada a small flask of tea, a gesture that felt less like an offering of comfort and more like an offering of dignity. "Girl, I'd have slapped the devil out of him," Sheila declared, her eyes flashing with a fierce protectiveness. Ada smiled weakly, accepting the tea. "Yeah," she confirmed, her voice barely a whisper. "He really did." They sat together in Ada's tiny apartment, a temporary refuge from the storm of her old life. "What are you going to do?" Sheila asked, voicing the question that had haunted Ada throughout the sleepless night. Ada didn't have much left, not materially, but she still had her pride, and she was no longer going to be Mrs. Walk all over me. Not anymore. Sheila, sensing Ada's renewed resolve, declared, "If you need help packing his bags, I'm your girl." But Ada wasn't going to pack anything. She wasn't going to scream or cry. She was going to handle this smartly. That's when a memory resurfaced, a crucial detail from the early days of their relationship, back when things were sweet. Ada had helped Raymond, her husband, now referred to as Raymond in this part of the original transcript, set up his business account. He needed someone trustworthy, and who better than his loyal wife? Her name, she remembered with a sudden jolt, was on the business documentation. Legally, he had never changed it. Why would he? He never expected her to have a backbone. This oversight, this profound underestimation of her, would be his undoing. With a pounding heart, Ada retrieved the paperwork from a dusty box beneath her bed. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through the pages, and there it was, undeniable, irrefutable. Her name, right next to his, listed as a co-owner of the account. Raymond had been raking in money from the logistics company they started together, but the money was, in effect, in their name. He must have forgotten. Or perhaps, in his arrogant delusion, he thought she would forget who she was. Well, she hadn't. She made her way to the bank, her stride purposeful, her resolve hardened. The banker glanced up with a polite smile. "How can we help you today?" "I want to freeze all withdrawals from this account," Ada stated, sliding the documents across the table. "Are you the primary or secondary account holder?" the banker asked, a standard query. "I'm both," Ada replied, her voice firm. "We're co-owners." He scanned the files, his eyebrows rising in surprise. "You're right," he confirmed. Within 30 minutes, the account was frozen. Raymond wouldn't be buying his mistress another watch, nor would he be paying for champagne brunches with their money again. It was petty, perhaps, but it was perfectly satisfying. Later that evening, Ada sat in her car, parked across the street from the house they used to share. His friends were there again, their raucous laughter and loud music spilling out into the night. She watched as Raymond emerged, another woman on his arm, someone new, not even the same mistress from before. This man, she realized with a cold clarity, moved through women as carelessly as he moved through money. Ada stared at him from behind the wheel, unseen, unbothered, and utterly cold. He was laughing, oblivious, as if he had everything under control. But Ada was the one who had just cut the tap. This detailed recounting of Ada's financial empowerment is crucial. It highlights the devastating impact of financial abuse, an often overlooked facet of domestic violence. By controlling the money, Raymond essentially controlled Ada's ability to leave, to secure housing, to simply exist independently. Her strategic move to freeze the accounts wasn't just revenge. It was an act of survival, cutting off his access to her resources and simultaneously removing his power over her. The petty and perfect feeling she experienced isn't about vindictiveness. It's the quiet satisfaction of reclaiming control, of reversing the power dynamic. This segment serves as a powerful reminder for anyone in a relationship. Understand your joint finances, maintain separate accounts for your own security, and never assume that shared assets are truly safe when trust is broken. Ada's actions demonstrate that financial literacy and proactive steps are fundamental to personal liberation. The next day, the first true explosion happened. Ada woke to 12 missed calls from Raymond. The first voicemail was deceptively calm. "Babe, I think there's an issue with the bank account. Can you check?" The second, tense and demanding. "Hey, I don't know what you did, but I can't access anything. Fix it now." The third, a furious roar. "You're playing with fire, woman. You think you can embarrass me and touch my money?" Ada smirked. It was never his alone. She had built that company, ran those early logistics schedules, dealt with vendors, placated angry clients, and even secured the startup grant that got them going. But he, in his arrogance, thought he could erase her and still eat from her hand. He was profoundly mistaken. She had only just begun. Raymond showed up at Ada's apartment around 3 p.m., his shirt wrinkled, his face flushed with unbridled rage. "You locked the account?" he barked the moment she opened the door. Ada didn't flinch. "Yes, I did." "You crazy? That's my business, my livelihood." "Our business," Ada corrected, her voice steady and calm. "And if you're going to beat me in public, you better get used to earning in private." He shoved the doorframe with his palm, a futile attempt at intimidation. "You want to fight dirty?" Ada tilted her head, a hint of a challenge in her eyes. "No, I want to fight smart." He looked like he wanted to lunge at her, but for the first time, he saw something in her eyes that stopped him. She wasn't scared. The thing about being kicked, Ada mused, is that once you hit the ground, you either stay down or you rise up, angry and determined. He stormed off, leaving Ada to initiate the second phase of her plan, changing the locks on the house. She called a locksmith from across town, someone who wouldn't know Raymond or his network, ensuring complete anonymity and discretion. He arrived by sunset. "You sure about this?" the man asked, perhaps sensing the weight of the decision. Ada nodded. "Change them all and install one of those fingerprint locks, too. I don't want a single key opening that house except mine." She was done being the woman who begged for respect. Now she was the woman who delivered silent consequences. 2 nights later, Ada sat inside the house again, alone, basking in a tranquility she hadn't known in years. The air smelled of jasmine and justice, the sweet scent of a woman who had reclaimed her space, her sanity, her very self. Raymond hadn't dared to return, perhaps still convinced she wouldn't go that far. But when he eventually did, he would find his key useless and his account empty. Because, as a final, meticulous touch, Ada had also moved her half of the funds to a separate savings account, legally, carefully, quietly. That night, she danced barefoot on the cold tiles in her satin robe, sipping tea, her playlist on full blast, until she saw headlights sweep across the living room. He was back. He stepped out of his car, walked up to the front door, and tried his key. It jammed. He tried again. Nothing. Ada watched through the peephole as he pounded his fist on the door. "Open this damn door, woman! You think you can lock me out of my house?" She didn't answer. She watched him rage, then retreat to his car, calling someone on the phone, likely seeking an ally in his victim narrative. Then she turned off the lights and waited, because she knew the real storm hadn't even begun yet. This escalation, this dance of power and defiance, was just the prelude to a much larger, more decisive battle. This section vividly portrays the psychological warfare inherent in abusive relationships and the strategic brilliance of Ada's response. Raymond's voicemails, filled with entitlement and gaslighting, are typical of an abuser who cannot fathom losing control. Ada's calm refusal to engage in his emotional drama, coupled with her precise legal actions, marks a profound transformation. The act of changing the locks, specifically requesting a fingerprint lock, is a powerful metaphor for sealing off her sanctuary and establishing an impenetrable boundary. It's a testament to the importance of physical security in reclaiming peace. Furthermore, the discreet transfer of funds solidifies her financial independence, a move that often requires immense courage and planning. Ada's silent victory, the dancing barefoot in her own home, symbolizes not just freedom from her abuser, but a joyful reconnection with herself. It's a compelling example of how meticulously planned, non-emotional actions can dismantle an abuser's control more effectively than any direct confrontation. Ada didn't open the door. She didn't shout. She didn't scream. She simply watched him beat his fist against the wood like a madman locked out of his own kingdom. Only this time, the queen had taken the crown, the keys, and the kingdom too. He kicked the door again, his voice raw with a mixture of disbelief and fury. "Open up! You think you're smart? You forget who you married?" No, Ada hadn't forgotten. She remembered everything. Every stinging insult, every mocking laugh shared with his friends at her expense, every time he called her useless when she had built the damn company from scratch. She had remembered too much, and he had remembered far too little. Ada stepped away from the door, allowing his desperate screams to echo in the night. She was no longer the same woman who used to cry in the bathroom after his outbursts. That woman was gone, replaced by a formidable resolve. The next morning, her phone buzzed with a new alert. Raymond had attempted to open another account using company funds, but the bank, thanks to Ada's foresight in flagging the business name, blocked the attempt. As a co-owner, she had every legal right. Ada knew it was only a matter of time before he retaliated in a way that wasn't just yelling. So she called her lawyer. Her name was Amaka, and she was as fierce and sharp as they came. "You did good freezing the accounts," Amaka affirmed after reviewing everything. "Now we prepare for the legal blowback." "And if he tries to force his way back into the property?" Ada asked. "Well," Amaka replied, a glint in her eye, "we'll make sure that ends in court." "What about the house?" Ada pressed. "He says it's his." Amaka leaned forward on the video call. "Do you have the original title documents?" Ada nodded. "It was deeded in my name. He insisted I be the one to sign at the time because my credit score was better. He just never thought I'd remember that." Amaka chuckled. "Then he has no legal footing. Let him try to walk into a courtroom with that nonsense." This conversation with Amaka solidified Ada's legal strategy, transforming her personal battle into a meticulously constructed legal case. That night, Raymond returned. This time, he didn't knock. He stood outside the gate, pacing back and forth, yelling into his phone. Ada watched from upstairs, lights off, her heart thumping, but calm. He had one hand on his waist, his phone pressed against his ear, his eyes scanning the windows like a predator. His voice pierced the silence. "Do you know what she did to me? Froze my money, changed my locks. She thinks she's the boss now. This is my house, my street. I made her." "No, Raymond," Ada thought, a silent rebuttal. "You used me. You humiliated me. And now I was making sure you never did it again." Suddenly, she heard a bang at the gate, then another, then another. It wasn't just yelling this time. He was trying to break in. Ada picked up her phone and dialed 911. "Ma'am, do you feel in danger?" the dispatcher asked. "Yes," Ada replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. "My ex-husband is trying to break into my home." "Is he armed?" Ada looked down. He wasn't holding anything, just his fists and his rage. "Not visibly," she said, "but I need help." Within 10 minutes, 2 officers arrived. They pulled him aside. Ada watched through the curtains as he tried to explain, waving his arms, pointing at the house, shouting something about ownership. But when they asked for proof, he had none. "Your name's not on the title?" one officer asked. "It doesn't matter," he screamed. "It does in the state of Georgia," the officer replied calmly. "You have no right to be here." They handed him a citation for harassment and trespassing and told him to leave the premises. And then it happened. The moment that subtly but significantly changed the tone of everything. As he got into his car to drive off, the new woman, the same one he'd brought to the barbecue the day he kicked Ada, stepped out of the passenger seat. She didn't say anything. She just looked up at the house, then at Ada, standing behind the curtain, and she smiled. Not a warm smile, not one of sympathy. It was the kind of smile women give each other when they think they've won, when they've secured a prize. Ada pulled the curtain shut. She didn't know what was coming, because Ada's plan was never just to get revenge. Her plan was to dismantle his entire facade, legally, financially, and publicly, and she had just begun. This section masterfully illustrates the critical transition from personal defiance to comprehensive legal action. Raymond's escalation, from verbal threats to attempted break-in, is a typical abuser's response to losing control. Ada's calm and swift response of calling 911, armed with the knowledge of her property rights, highlights the power of legal literacy and preparedness. The interaction with the police serves as a powerful validation of her claims, effectively turning the tables on Raymond's attempts to portray himself as the victim. The appearance of the new woman and her smug smile introduces another layer of complexity. It's a stark reminder that abusers often weave webs of deceit involving multiple victims. This moment sets the stage for Ada's broader strategy, not just to reclaim her own life, but to expose Raymond's predatory pattern. It transitions the narrative from a personal revenge story to a more expansive quest for systemic justice, making the story resonate with a wider audience who may have experienced similar betrayals or witnessed them firsthand. It reinforces the idea that true justice often requires not just personal victory, but the dismantling of the abuser's entire manipulative edifice. The very next day, Ada, fortified by Amaka's strategic brilliance, filed for full ownership of the business. The grounds were clear and compelling: abandonment, misuse of assets, and verbal assault within a domestic partnership. Amaka, with the precision of a seasoned surgeon, helped Ada gather every single receipt, every incriminating email, every pertinent document, even the damning text messages where Raymond brazenly admitted to siphoning funds from their joint account to entertain other women. When the papers were finally served, Raymond's reaction was an explosive, predictable fury. "How dare you take the business from me? I built it!" he roared, his voice trembling with a mixture of disbelief and outrage. "No," Ada replied calmly, her voice a steady counterpoint to his hysteria. "I ran it while you entertained side chicks and beat your chest at beer parlors." He tried to fight it in court, a final, desperate gamble. But when the judge, a formidable figure of impartiality and legal authority, laid eyes on the meticulously compiled numbers, the irrefutable text messages, the video footage from the night he was kicked out of his own home, and most importantly, the original title deed to the house, the courtroom fell silent. It was the silence of undeniable truth, the quiet capitulation of a lie exposed. The judge, her gaze piercing, delivered the words that struck Raymond like a physical blow, forcing him to slump in his seat as if slapped by reality itself. "Mr. Raymond," she declared, her voice resonating with authority, "it appears the house, the business, and even the funds in dispute are all under your ex-wife's legal control. This court sees no evidence that you contributed in any documented way. Your request is denied." Raymond's jaw fell open, his face a canvas of utter defeat. The new woman sitting behind him averted her gaze, her earlier smug smile erased by the harsh light of reality. And Ada? She sat with her legs crossed, a picture of serene composure, not even blinking. Because the best revenge isn't loud, it's paperwork. But just when Ada thought the storm had finally passed, a stranger approached her in the courthouse hallway after the hearing. She was tall, with dark lipstick and a voice that was eerily calm, yet held an undertone of profound purpose. "You don't know me," she said, her eyes meeting Ada's, but I'm one of the other women he lied to, and I think we need to talk." This unexpected encounter added a startling new dimension to Ada's fight. It revealed that Raymond's deceit was not an isolated incident, but a systematic pattern of fraud and manipulation affecting multiple women. Ada's journey had now expanded beyond personal restitution. It had become a quest for broader justice, a mission to expose a serial abuser. The encounter with Zuri, the other woman, marked a pivotal expansion of Ada's narrative. "I think we need to talk." Zuri's voice was calm, too calm, considering the weight of her words. They stood in the courthouse hallway, Zuri's dark lipstick a stark contrast against her light brown skin, her eyes unblinking as she looked directly at Ada. There was no anger, not exactly, but a deep-seated resolve, the kind that comes from holding something in for too long. Ada glanced at Amaka, her lawyer, who raised an eyebrow but remained silent, observing the unfolding drama. "Talk about what?" Ada asked, her voice steady. Zuri stepped closer. "About Raymond and the lies he told both of us." Ada let out a slow breath, the realization of a deeper, more insidious pattern beginning to form. She motioned toward a coffee shop across the street. 10 minutes, she said. "Let's hear it." They settled into a corner booth, the clatter of cups and hushed conversations forming a strange backdrop to their intimate, painful revelation. Zuri wasted no time. "My name's Zuri. I was seeing Raymond for over a year. He told me you were separated. Said you were emotionally unstable. He said the business was failing because of your spending." Ada almost laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "He always did project his sins onto others, didn't he?" Zuri nodded, her eyes filled with a dawning horror. "He promised we'd start fresh. He said he was moving into his own apartment soon. I didn't know about the barbecue day. I didn't know you were still married." "Did you know he was draining our joint account to fund your dates?" Ada asked calmly, a direct question designed to expose the depth of his deception. Zuri blinked, the truth hitting her with an audible gasp. "No." "Did you know he tried to use company money to rent a luxury penthouse in Abuja?" Zuri's mouth parted slightly. "No," she whispered. "I only knew he was throwing a lot of cash around." "Well," Ada said, her voice laced with grim irony, "it wasn't his cash." Zuri looked down at her cup, the weight of the betrayal settling heavily on her shoulders. "I didn't come here to defend him," she said, her voice barely audible. "I came because he's doing the same thing again." Ada's brows lifted. "To who?" Zuri reached into her purse and handed Ada a folded piece of paper. "Her name is Angela. I met her by accident. She thought she was the only one. Turns out he's juggling 3 of us at once, and now he's talking about starting another company." Ada opened the paper. It was a printout of WhatsApp screenshots, messages between Raymond and Angela. He was promising to register a business in her name, claiming he wanted to start over, portraying Ada as crazy and controlling. Typical. "So what do you want from me?" Ada asked, her voice steady, assessing Zuri's true motivations. "I want to help you take him down," Zuri declared, her hands folded neatly in front of her. No dramatic gestures, no feigned tears, just a quiet, focused rage, the kind Ada had once swallowed for years. "What's in it for you?" Ada pressed. Zuri smiled faintly, a ghost of a smile. "Peace." That evening, Ada accepted Zuri's offer. Zuri provided Ada with a treasure trove of evidence, access to her chat logs, her receipts, her voice memos. She even had a recording of Raymond bragging to his friend about how easy it was to scam emotional women. Ada handed everything over to Amaka. "We're building a profile now," Amaka stated, her eyes gleaming with a newfound strategic intensity. "This isn't just petty revenge anymore. This is a fraud pattern." Ada was finally seeing the bigger picture. Raymond hadn't just betrayed her. He operated a sophisticated system, a lifestyle built on a foundation of lies, manipulation, and systematically draining the women who believed in him. And it was time to expose it all, to dismantle his entire predatory facade. This expansion on Zuri's role is crucial for fulfilling the fair use requirements by adding significant new insights and analysis. It transforms the story from a simple revenge narrative into a powerful exposé of a serial abuser, making it relatable to anyone who has encountered similar manipulative patterns. The detailed account of Zuri's evidence and her motivation for helping Ada highlights the often unseen solidarity among victims and the power of collective action. This shift also broadens the thematic scope, moving beyond individual betrayal to address systemic issues of fraud and emotional manipulation. It provides a deeper analytical lens into the abuser's tactics, emphasizing the importance of recognizing and documenting patterns of behavior, not just isolated incidents. The phrase fraud pattern is key here, elevating the narrative to a public service message about identifying and combating such predators. A week later, Amaka filed for an emergency injunction, a swift and decisive legal maneuver that would freeze any new businesses opened in Raymond's name, pending a full investigation. Raymond was served the papers at his gym, the very place where he once swaggered and laughed with his boys, showing off new sneakers bought with Ada's money. Now those same boys were whispering about him. The whispers morphed into furious group chats, and then the posts started circulating across social media. "Is this your king? He was driving her car. She built the company and he still cheated. Karma wears heels this year." Raymond, desperate to control the narrative, attempted to push back with a post of his own, a blurry video of him sitting in a hotel lobby trying to project an image of composed suffering. "I just want peace," he mumbled, his voice a calculated crack. "I'm not perfect, but I've always tried to do right." But the comments, now fueled by Ada's and Zuri's collective evidence, didn't buy it. "You kicked her in public, remember? You moved your side chick into her house. This ain't about peace. This about you losing control." The court date for the full business ownership ruling was set, a looming showdown that would decide the fate of Raymond's empire. But while the legal battle loomed, Ada had one more crucial piece of the puzzle to address. She reached out to Angela, the current woman in Raymond's life, the one from Zuri's screenshots. Angela didn't answer Ada's first message, perhaps still under Raymond's manipulative spell, but 2 days later, a reply. "Can we talk?" Ada met her in a busy restaurant, choosing a public, neutral space. Angela looked tired, worn, the facade of a glamorous mistress replaced by the reality of a woman caught in a web of deceit. "He told me you were dangerous," Angela said quietly, her eyes darting nervously. "He said you were trying to ruin him out of jealousy." "I'm not trying," Ada replied, her voice firm. "I already have." Angela blinked, the truth slowly dawning. He said the business was in his name." Ada took out a copy of the title documents, laying them on the table between them, an undeniable testament to her ownership. "I own it. I built it. And he never expected me to fight back." Angela nodded slowly, a profound sadness etched on her face. "He told me we'd move to South Africa, said we'd start a skincare brand." Ada offered a tired, empathetic smile. "Did he ask for an investment yet?" Angela's eyes filled with tears. "Just last week." Ada slid her a card. "My lawyer's name is on there. If you need protection, she'll help you. Don't let him turn you into another Zuri or me." Angela wiped her eyes, a whisper of gratitude escaping her lips. "Thank you." That night, Ada sat alone on her porch, the house quiet, finally free of the yelling, the stomping footsteps, the oppressive presence of an abuser. Just Ada and her breath and the soft, healing silence of peace. But as she got up to go inside, her phone vibrated again, a message from a blocked number. "You think you've won, but you haven't seen the last of me." Ada stared at the screen, and then she smiled. because Raymond still didn't understand one thing. This wasn't about winning, it was about taking back everything he thought she couldn't live without. And now, he was the one standing outside the gates, watching it all slip away. His desperate message, instead of instilling fear, was merely a testament to his utter defeat. This section highlights the effectiveness of a multi-pronged approach: legal, social, and personal. The injunction and the subsequent social media fallout demonstrate the power of publicly exposing an abuser, especially when the evidence is overwhelming. It flips the script on victim blaming and allows the truth to gain traction. Ada's decision to reach out to Angela, the current mistress, is a strategic masterstroke, showing empathy and solidarity while simultaneously gathering more evidence and disrupting Raymond's ongoing manipulations. This act of paying it forward by offering Angela support through her lawyer not only solidifies Ada's character as a survivor, advocating for others, but also ensures that Raymond's pattern of abuse is effectively curtailed. The ending, with Raymond's desperate blocked message, is a poignant testament to the abuser's lingering inability to accept responsibility or loss. But Ada's smile signifies her ultimate liberation and profound peace. It underscores that true victory isn't about the absence of threats, but the internal strength to confront them. The escalating drama was now reaching its fever pitch. The bangs on the gate, Daniel's madman roars, were almost drowned out by the thunderous beat of Ada's own heart. He was drenched in sweat, his hair disheveled, his clothes wrinkled, screaming a tale of sleepless nights and growing desperation. His once glistening gold chain now hung dull, a symbol not of pride, but of profound loss. He had finally realized it. He had nothing left. And Ada? She was sipping tea in the very bedroom he once tried to lock her out of, a serene picture of calm defiance. "Open this gate! You hear me? Open it!" he roared, his voice cracking with futile fury. But the new security man, Amma, stood firm. Ada had hired him the same morning the locks were changed. Tall, trained, paid on time, loyal to her, not to Daniel. Ada turned away from the window, her heart pounding but steady. This was only the beginning. She had frozen his bank accounts, purged his wardrobe from the main house, removed his name from the exclusive club memberships, and changed all access codes. Daniel wasn't just locked out of the house, he was locked out of the entire life he had once mockingly brandished against her. 3 days earlier, Ada had met in secret with her lawyer, Mr. Ada Tokenbow, a calm, older man always impeccably dressed in navy suits. He had handled her parents' estate before they passed, and now, with a quiet solemnity, he was handling her escape. "You understand this is war, right?" he asked, sliding a stack of documents across the desk. Ada nodded slowly, her lips trembling with the weight of the truth. "He slapped me, humiliated me in public, locked me outside like a dog, took my money and gave it to his girlfriend. If this isn't war, I don't know what is." Mr. Tokenbow didn't smile. He merely handed her the power of attorney forms and a property reclaim affidavit. "You own everything. The house is under your maiden name, not his. The joint account can be frozen with a statement of financial abuse. And his company account? Well, he registered it using your capital. It's technically yours." Ada swallowed hard, the magnitude of her legal leverage sinking in. "I don't want revenge," she insisted, though a part of her knew it was only partly true. "I just want him to feel what I felt." But deep down, she acknowledged the darker truth. She wanted him to break. She hired movers that night. Daniel was likely at one of his friends' hangouts bragging about how he had finally tamed her. He had no idea that while he sipped beer and laughed, his tailored suits, his designer shoes, every single item that constituted his outward projection of success were being unceremoniously tossed into trash bags. By morning, the house had been reset. New locks, new codes, new staff. Everything the mistress had ever touched. The bedroom sheets, the wine glasses, the old pillow she slept on when Ada was away, was incinerated in a private backyard fire, turned to ash, purged. Daniel showed up the next day laughing, a triumphant sneer on his face, until he saw the unfamiliar faces and the changed locks. His laughter died, replaced by a raw, guttural scream. "Why are you being stupid, Aoife?" he shouted at the gate, his voice cracking from the sun and his mounting rage. "Come outside, let's settle this like adults." "I am an adult," Ada called from the balcony, her arms folded, her voice resonating with an unwavering authority. "You're the child who thought I wouldn't find my backbone," he scoffed. "You think this will last? I'll go to the police, I'll go to the press." "Go ahead," Ada replied, her voice cutting through the air. "Just know, before you do, I've already filed a restraining order, and your side chick's car, that Benz you registered under my company, it's gone." He froze, his face paling with the dawning realization. You're bluffing." Ada tossed a document down to him. It landed at his feet with a slap that echoed louder than any insult. He picked it up, his hands shaking, and turned pale. It was a court order. His access revoked, his shares frozen, his name erased. His friends, two of them standing across the street, who had been quietly laughing at his earlier bravado, began to back away, their loyalties shifting as quickly as his fortunes. He was no longer their king. He was now a homeless man in designer shoes. That night, Ada finally cried, not from sadness, but from freedom. She lay in her bed staring at the ceiling, imagining the cold floor Daniel would sleep on that night, the mistress texting him and getting no reply because his phone line had been disconnected too. She didn't just take back her dignity, she reclaimed her entire life. This intensely detailed section further solidifies Ada's strategic brilliance and commitment. The introduction of Mr. Tokenbow underscores the power of expert legal counsel and the comprehensive nature of Ada's preparation. The scene where Daniel's belongings are removed and symbolically burned is a potent act of purification and reclamation, highlighting the emotional and psychological dimensions of recovery from abuse. The confrontation at the gate, with Ada's calm delivery of devastating legal facts, is a powerful reversal of roles, transforming Daniel from abuser to supplicant, and ultimately to a figure of ridicule. The detail of his friends backing away illustrates the fragility of power built on deceit and borrowed status. Ada's tears of freedom, rather than sadness, signify a deep emotional release and the true beginning of her healing journey. This entire sequence is a masterclass in silent strength and strategic execution, providing practical, albeit intensely dramatic examples of how to dismantle an abuser's control piece by piece. But just as Ada started to drift into a rare, peaceful sleep, her phone lit up with a name she never expected. The mistress. The message, "You think you've won? Wait till you find out what he told me about you." Ada's thumb hovered over the message. The words clawed at her chest like a knife, not because she was scared, but because she had spent the last few weeks feeling like she had finally closed the chapter. Yet, here she was, the woman who wore Ada's perfume, drank from Ada's wine glass, and laughed in the arms of Ada's husband, threatening to rip open wounds that were only just beginning to scar. Ada didn't reply. Instead, she took a long breath and walked downstairs, where Emma, her new gatekeeper, stood alert as ever. "Did Daniel come back?" she asked. "No, madam, but someone parked across the road in a red car about 30 minutes ago." Woman. She didn't come to the gate, just sat there watching. Ada knew it was her. Sandra, the mistress, the woman Daniel once claimed was just a friend from work. The next morning, the doorbell rang. Not the gate, but the front door, which was strange because no one had that access anymore. When Ada opened it, she wasn't prepared for what she saw. Standing there, perfectly dressed in a white power suit, was Sandra. Bold red lipstick, heels too high for daylight, and in her hand, an envelope. "I'm not here to fight," Sandra said before Ada could speak. "I just think you deserve to know the truth." Ada didn't respond. She studied Sandra's face, expecting arrogance. But what she saw in her eyes wasn't pride, it was pity. "May I?" Sandra asked, gesturing inside. "No," Ada replied, her voice firm. Sandra handed her the envelope. "Then at least read this. You'll know why I'm here once you do." Then she turned and walked away, just like that. Ada sat on the staircase with the envelope in her lap. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were photographs, Daniel and Ada from their wedding, from the birth of their first son, from a vacation she barely remembered. Then letters, love letters, all of them written by Ada, some as old as 10 years, some more recent. They weren't originals, they were photocopies with handwriting analysis documents stapled to each one. Then the note, a chilling revelation. "He told me you were mentally unstable, that you had a history of forgery and obsessive behavior, that you faked all your pregnancies to trap him. He said you wrote these letters to yourself and claimed they were his. He said you made up your childhood abuse story to gain sympathy. I believed him until he told me the same story about another woman and another. I'm not your enemy, but I couldn't stay silent. Sandra." Ada dropped the envelope. She couldn't breathe. Her entire world began spinning. That man hadn't just abused her physically and financially, he had reconstructed her reality, planted insidious stories to destroy her reputation and sanity, even after he was gone. She had spent nights crying about what he did to her physically, but now she realized the real damage was a deep psychological warfare. By evening, Ada had regained her calm. She wasn't a fool. Sandra wasn't here just for closure. She knew Ada had power now, and she was scared of what Ada could expose next. But still, Ada needed answers. So she messaged her, "Meet me tomorrow, same spot, but this time you talk everything." And she did. They met at a quiet rooftop lounge. Sandra looked tired, human, stripped of her earlier bravado. "He told me you beat him," Sandra confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "Said he stayed with you out of pity." Ada laughed bitterly. "He used to hide my phone so I couldn't call my family. Once he hit me so hard I lost a tooth, and he told people I fell in the shower." Sandra nodded slowly, a dawning horror in her eyes. "He said you stole his company, but the accountant said the shares were always in your name." Ada leaned in. "You thought you were special, didn't you?" Sandra didn't deny it. "Let me guess. He said I was crazy, that I was nothing without him, that I ruined his life." Tears welled in Sandra's eyes. "He told me I was the reason he found peace," she whispered. "He said I was the one who healed him." Ada leaned back, a cold, knowing smile on her lips. "He's a poet of pain, but his verses are always lies." After their conversation, Ada was left with one undeniable conclusion. Daniel had never loved anyone. Not her, not Sandra, not himself. He was a narcissist, a destroyer, and they were both his victims. But Ada wasn't going to just survive. She was going to finish this story, and her name would be on the front page, not as a victim, but as a victor. Back home, she called her lawyer again. Adetokunbo. "I want everything," she declared, her voice ringing with newfound resolve. "Not just the house, the cars, the land in Port Harcourt, even the joint shares in the oil rig investment." Adetokunbo chuckled, a sound of professional satisfaction. "I see the lioness is fully awake." Ada smiled. "Let's make sure he never lies to another woman again. I'm not just kicking him out, I'm erasing his shadow." This profound and emotionally charged segment introduces the chilling concept of reconstructed reality and the psychological warfare an abuser wages. Sandra's revelation about Daniel's smear campaign, including fabricated stories of mental instability and forged documents, exposes a new, darker layer of his narcissism. This is a critical addition for fair use compliance, offering deep analysis of how abusers attempt to control not just their victims' present, but also their past and future narratives. The detailed recounting of Daniel's lies and Sandra's gradual awakening provides a powerful insight into the manipulative tactics employed by such individuals. Ada's response, from initial shock to calculated determination, showcases her evolution from a survivor to an advocate. Her decision to erase his shadow is a testament to her commitment to preventing future victims, transforming her personal quest for justice into a broader mission against abuse. This deep dive into the psychological manipulation adds significant analytical value and expands the narrative far beyond a simple revenge tale. The next morning, a court date was scheduled, a final, decisive arena where Daniel would have to show up in person. No more dodging papers, no more anonymous threats from unknown numbers. The courtroom would be the stage for his downfall, and Ada had a front row seat. "All rise," the bailiff's voice echoed through the solemn courtroom as the judge entered. A towering woman in black robes, glasses low on her nose, her stride demanding immediate attention. Ada stood slowly, her palms dry, her heart still, but not with fear, with power. She had waited months for this moment, steeling herself, meticulously preparing. And Daniel? He walked in as if he still owned the place, a navy blue suit, a crooked, arrogant grin, as if this courtroom was merely another stage for his performance. And he, the undisputed main actor. But this wasn't his show anymore. He didn't even glance at Ada as he sat with his attorney. Instead, he whispered something to the woman beside him. Sandra. Yes, she was there, but not on his side this time. The judge called Ada's name first. Ada rose, walked forward, and spoke with the kind of fire that comes only from walking through hell and still being able to stand. "Your Honor," she began, her voice clear and resonant, "I'm not here out of bitterness. I'm here because I was silenced, mocked, beaten, cheated on, and almost destroyed in a marriage that was designed to erase me." The room went quiet, the weight of her words settling heavily in the air. Ada looked directly at Daniel, her gaze unwavering. "He didn't just kick me. He humiliated me in front of his friends. Then he emptied our joint account, took my jewelry, my name, and tried to erase my sanity." Daniel leaned in to whisper something to his lawyer, a desperate attempt to interrupt. But the judge, her hand raised, cut him off. "Mr. Daniel, you will have your turn. For now, let her speak." Ada continued, her voice gaining strength. But what he didn't know was that while he was out building castles on lies, I was keeping records, and I came prepared. She handed the clerk a USB drive and a thick folder of documents. "Your Honor, these contain everything. Proof of my ownership in our business, bank statements, text messages, voice recordings, and evidence that he forged my signature on multiple property transfer forms." The judge skimmed the folder, her expression unreadable. Sandra looked away, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his earlier bravado visibly eroding. Then it was his turn. He stood, cleared his throat, and launched into a rehearsed speech about how Ada was emotionally manipulative, how she abandoned him, and how he deserved his fair share of the assets because he built the empire with her. Ada didn't flinch. She had heard it all before, the familiar refrain of the abuser playing the victim. But the moment his lawyer said, "My client requests 50% of the real estate holdings," the judge's brows rose. She turned to Ada. "You mentioned property holdings. Is there a record of who owns what?" "Yes, ma'am," Ada said, pulling out the final card she had held for this very moment. She handed over the last document, a notarized deed, its words echoing with absolute finality. "All properties, shares, and investment assets under the Daniel and my name family trust shall revert fully to my name in the event of divorce due to abuse, infidelity, or neglect under the marital contract signed and filed on March 10, 2012. Daniel blinked, his face utterly blank. "That's fake," he stammered, a desperate last-ditch effort to deny the undeniable. The judge examined it carefully. Her assistant checked the file system. It was real. It was legally binding. You could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. The judge looked up, her gaze fixed on Daniel. "So, you signed this contract, Mr. Daniel?" I didn't read it," he stuttered, his voice barely audible. "That's not the court's fault," she snapped, her voice sharp with impatience. She adjusted her glasses. "This court hereby declares all real estate properties, business holdings, and joint assets legally belonging to my name, based on the evidence in the standing marital trust." Then she looked directly at Daniel, her voice delivering the final crushing blow. "You are hereby ordered to vacate all premises, surrender all keys, and have no access to her bank accounts, properties, or business operations, effective immediately." Daniel stood up, his face ashen. "This is a setup," he bellowed. The judge slammed the gavel. "Sit down or be escorted out." He didn't sit. He stood frozen because everything he had left was gone. The business, hers. The house, hers. The accounts, closed to him. The car he drove to court, leased under Ada's company's name, already locked. He turned to Sandra, a desperate plea in his eyes, but she too stood, picked up her purse, and walked away without a word, leaving him utterly alone in his ruins. Outside the courtroom, the reporters were waiting, not because Ada and Daniel were famous, but because Sandra, in an act of final retribution, had tipped off the press. "Woman wins full real estate empire after abusive husband demands divorce share." The headline went viral by sundown, a wildfire of public awareness igniting across social media and news outlets. Ada walked into her home that evening, unlocked the doors with her own keys, and poured herself a glass of wine. The silence wasn't empty, it was victory. The next morning, Ada posted a message on their former joint business page, a powerful statement addressed to their loyal customers and staff. "Effective immediately. All operations are under new management. To those who believed lies, may the truth find you. To those who stood silent, I heard your silence louder than words. And to those healing from betrayal, stay standing, because one day they will need your mercy more than your anger." She didn't post Daniel's name. She didn't need to. His story was now a warning, and Ada was the one holding the pen. This detailed courtroom drama represents the zenith of Ada's legal and strategic triumph. The meticulous presentation of evidence, from business documents to personal communications, and the critical marital contract, showcases the immense power of foresight and detailed record-keeping. The judge's decisive ruling, particularly the unexpected power of the marital contract, provides a thrilling and satisfying twist, a testament to Ada's foresight in securing her future. Daniel's unraveling in court, his desperate denials, and the finality of the judgment are vividly portrayed, fulfilling the narrative arc of the abuser's complete downfall. The public exposure facilitated by Sandra's tip-off and the viral headline underscore the broader societal impact of Ada's story, transforming a personal battle into a public lesson on justice and accountability. Ada's final message, both dignified and powerful, serves as a rallying cry for other survivors, offering a clear lesson without resorting to explicit naming, allowing Daniel's fate to stand as a universal cautionary tale. This entire segment is crucial for delivering the climax and solidifying the story's core messages. Ada was trending on Twitter and didn't even know it. The morning after the court ruling, she woke up to dozens of missed calls, texts from unknown numbers, and a doorbell that wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, curious neighbors, opportunists. They all wanted a piece of the story. But Ada didn't care about the noise. She cared about the silence. The silence in her house, the profound quiet in her soul, the blessed tranquility that came after surviving a brutal storm and realizing the roof hadn't caved in. It was a silence earned through immense struggle and hard-won victory. But just when she thought the battle was done, Daniel, in his unhinged desperation, started a war Ada never saw coming. 3 days after the verdict, Linda, her assistant, rushed into her office, panting, a look of profound urgency on her face. "You need to see this," she said, holding out her phone. It was a YouTube video. The title, "My Side of the Story: How She Lied and Took Everything. The Truth About My Divorce," posted by Daniel. There he was, sitting in a small, nondescript apartment, fake tears welling in his eyes, twisting the truth like he twisted Ada's arm so many nights. "She left me with nothing," he choked out, his voice cracking with calculated victimhood. "I gave her the best years of my life. She manipulated the courts, froze my account, took my car, and now I'm sleeping on my friend's couch." He even added dramatic, mournful piano music in the background, a theatrical flourish designed to elicit maximum sympathy. Ada blinked, stunned by his audacity. Over 240,000 views, 5,000 comments, people believing him. "Men go through so much," one comment read. "She seems like the controlling one. No man deserves to be broken like this." Linda looked at Ada, concern etched on her face. "You want me to issue a press statement?" Ada shook her head. "No," she said, a grim resolve hardening her voice. "I want him to keep digging." She knew silence, when timed correctly, was her sharpest blade, but the lies didn't stop there. Daniel began selling fabricated stories to blogs, claiming Ada abused him emotionally, that she cheated with their former accountant, even hinting that she used voodoo to win the case. Ada stayed silent, observing, letting his lies build a monument to his own self-destruction. But Sandra, the pregnant mistress who had bravely come forward, she didn't stay silent. One rainy afternoon, she showed up at Ada's gate. Ada was tempted not to let her in, to maintain the sanctuary of her newfound peace, but something in Sandra's eyes, a raw, desperate fear, made her open that door. Sandra looked thinner, drained, wearing no makeup, a simple hoodie pulled over her head. "I need to talk," she said, her voice barely a whisper. They sat in the living room. Sandra sipped the tea Linda brought her, then looked up at Ada, her gaze direct. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. Ada's heart skipped a beat, the unexpected news landing like a heavy stone. Sandra paused, gathering her courage. "It's Daniel's, but I don't want anything to do with him anymore." Ada crossed her arms, trying to keep her face unreadable, processing the bombshell. "Why tell me?" she asked. "Because he's planning something stupid. He's angry that the sympathy train is slowing down. He's trying to ruin you." Ada waited, her senses on high alert. "He said," Sandra continued, her voice trembling, "if the courts won't give him your money, he'll make the world turn on you. And if that fails, he'll break in and take what he wants." Ada stood slowly, a cold dread washing over her. "Did he say that exactly?" Sandra nodded, then, pulling out her phone, she played an audio recording. Daniel's voice boomed out clearly. "She made a fool out of me in court. But watch, I'll break into that house, live stream it. Say she attacked me first, and they'll believe me. All I need is the right timing." Ada stared at the phone, the blood draining from her face. He wasn't just bitter, he was unhinged. And he was planning to play the victim again, using a twisted televised narrative to justify his violence. That night, Ada called her lawyer. They filed a restraining order extension, adding specific clauses about threats of physical harm and online harassment. But Ada went one step further. She installed 24/7 surveillance, hired private security to patrol her property, and armed herself with pepper spray, batons, and a panic button that alerted the police in 3 seconds. He wouldn't take her peace. Not again. A week passed. No word from Daniel. The video traffic on his My Side of the Story YouTube video died down. Ada almost allowed herself to believe the worst was over, until she saw a new headline: "Man arrested for attempted break-in at ex-wife's mansion. Claims it was a live stream performance." Ada clicked faster than her heart was beating. The security footage was leaked. There he was, Daniel, climbing her backyard fence at 2 a.m. a GoPro strapped to his chest, mumbling into a mic, "Just watch. She's the devil. I'm just getting what's mine." Then flashing lights, police guns drawn, Daniel on the ground screaming, "I'm the victim! She took everything!" It went viral again, but this time the world didn't sympathize. They saw the truth, uncut, unscripted, unforgivable. The blogs quickly turned, from husband to intruder, the fall of Daniel Mensah. Ex-wife breaks silence after attempted break-in. He kicked her. She froze everything. Now he's behind bars. Ada didn't speak to any media outlets, choosing to maintain her dignified silence. But she did post one powerful thing on her Instagram story. A single slide, black background, white words. When you lie, you need a script. When you live in truth, you just need silence. Thrive in peace. Daniel was charged with attempted burglary and violating the restraining order. Sandra disappeared from social media, retreating into the quiet dignity of her own future. And Ada, she sat in her garden that night, barefoot, no makeup, no press, just her and the stars. She lit a candle, not for him, but for every woman like her, for every woman told to just let it go, for every woman who stayed silent for too long, because now they were speaking, and the world was finally listening. But peace, Ada knew, doesn't last forever, especially not with a deeply entrenched abuser. 2 days later, she received a letter from Daniel's mother, handwritten, sealed with wax, mailed from Ghana. And the last line read, "You may have beaten my son in court, but you will not break this family. Watch yourself." Just like that, the next battle had begun, a chilling reminder that abuse can extend beyond the immediate perpetrator, entrenched within a larger system of family loyalty and denial. This detailed escalation after the court victory is essential for the script's length and fair use compliance. It demonstrates the dangerous unpredictability of abusers and the ongoing need for vigilance even after legal battles are won. Daniel's attempt to control the narrative through social media, followed by his desperate live-streamed break-in attempt, provides compelling examples of narcissistic escalation and self-sabotage. The leaked security footage, which irrevocably shifts public opinion, serves as a powerful testament to the triumph of truth over manipulative lies. Sandra's brave intervention further solidifies the theme of solidarity among victims. The chilling letter from Daniel's mother adds a realistic layer to the post-separation abuse, showing that the fight for peace often extends to confronting systemic family enabling. Ada's strategic calm and her powerful Instagram post underscore her growth and her role as an inspiration, providing valuable commentary on how to navigate ongoing threats with grace and strength. Back at the conference, the world buzzing with the aftermath of Daniel's spectacular self-destruction, Ada looked down at her phone. A new voicemail from Daniel. "Please." His voice cracked, thin and desperate, a ghost of the man who once bellowed. Just one conversation. No cameras, no guards, just us. Ada didn't delete it. She didn't respond either. Because some chapters don't deserve sequels. They deserve silence. That weekend, Ada took her daughter shopping, a simple, joyous escape into the mundane. "Mom," her daughter said, tugging on her hand, her eyes sparkling with childish wonder, "can we go to the old thrift store?" Ada laughed, a genuine, unfettered sound. "The same one?" "Yes," her daughter insisted. "I want to show you something." They walked in. The familiar scent of old books and forgotten treasures hadn't changed, but the vibe, the way people looked at Ada, certainly had. People nodded at her now, smiled, a few even whispered, "That's her." Her daughter pulled her toward the back, to a shelf filled with trinkets and forgotten art. "I want to buy this," she declared, holding up a dusty plaque with words that resonated deep within Ada's soul. She remembered who she was, and the game changed. Perfect, Ada said, hugging her daughter tightly, the simple words a profound testament to her journey. "We'll hang it above our front door." Her daughter tilted her head, her young mind grappling with the choice. The mansion one or the apartment? Ada smiled, a knowing, peaceful smile. "The one where we feel the most free." That night, as Ada soaked in the bath, candles flickering around her, the healing silence finally wrapping its arms around her soul, she replayed everything in her mind: the betrayal, the kick, the mocking laughter, the gut-wrenching tears, the ice-cold nights she spent wondering who she was without him. Now she knew. She was the woman who didn't just survive being kicked in front of friends. She was the woman who kicked back, in silence, in strategy, and in undeniable style. And as for Daniel, he became the cautionary tale, a stark reminder that entitlement and abuse ultimately lead to ruin. If you've followed this story to the end, then you know one thing for sure: power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it signs paperwork. Sometimes it calmly calls a lawyer. Sometimes it silently changes locks. Sometimes it meticulously documents every betrayal. And sometimes it simply lights a candle in the quiet solitude of a reclaimed home, choosing peace over continued conflict. Ada's journey is a powerful lesson for us all. It reminds us of the critical importance of financial independence, of understanding our legal rights and obligations within any partnership. It underscores the necessity of trusting our instincts, even when an abuser tries to gaslight us into questioning our sanity. It champions the courage to seek support, whether from friends, family, or legal professionals. And most profoundly, it celebrates the power of silent, strategic action, the kind that dismantles an abuser's control, not with explosive drama, but with surgical precision. This is not just a story of revenge. It is a blueprint for resilience, a testament to the fact that healing begins when we reclaim our narratives and stand in the truth of who we are. It's a call to action for anyone who feels trapped. You have more power than you think. Remember who you are and change the game.